about applying to the DCP. And basically this part is like filling out a job resume. You're gonna put your past jobs and you're gonna put your basic information, and then they're gonna ask you about roles that you would want to work as in the college program. So when we're talking about filling out your past jobs, you want to put everything you've done, whether that is a job or whether that is volunteer work. For me, I put that I volunteered for the Special Olympics when my figure skating club had them come to skate. I put all about that, and I've also done other things with the Special Olympics kids. So I put all that, and then I put my current jobs. So I put that I was a drink runner in a restaurant and I work in an ice rink. So I put them, and then I made sure when I put the description, I put every detail that I did. There's also Disney keywords that I will list down below. And they are important to put in your job description because some say that when they're looking for like future Disney college program people, that they look at these keywords, and whether that is truth or not, I do not know. I don't believe I put any in mine. I might have stuck one in there, but some people make sure they work around those words and some don't. So it all varies, and no one really knows how the application process goes. Another thing they ask on there is to rank your roles. And something very important that I will say that everyone should do, that I did not do, is that you should read through all the roles before applying. So you know each role is, to know what everything is, every detail, because when you go in and you rate your roles from high interest to low interest, moderate interest, no interest, you need to make sure you know what you do. If you go in and put everything as high interest because you just want to get into the program, I don't recommend doing that. I'd recommend doing high, that you would love doing, absolutely like are capable of doing, you're qualified for doing, and then do your low interest and then do no interest. I had a lot of high interest roles because they are things that I was interested in. I didn't put anything that I wasn't interested in moderate or high because I didn't want to do it. Just like, for example, I don't see myself doing custodial or Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, or there's like some watercraft one, I believe, and a bus greeter, or like a luggage person, or I didn't put any interest in that. But for high interest, I put like photo pass, character attendant, attractions, quick service, merchandise. I put lifeguard. The other thing that's super important to remember is that it does not matter when you apply because everyone will be looked at. Whether you apply the first day, it doesn't make a difference if you apply at the last day. So just make sure you get your application in between the first day and the last day and you're good. Sometimes people will apply the first day and maybe they won't get a web interview until later, but someone who also applied on the first day would get it in like 30 minutes. It doesn't matter, and everyone's process is so different, and that's very important to remember through all this. Web interview, and I've never had one before. This is my first time having one, so I looked up and I asked the people on the Facebook page, what is this about? Like, what am I gonna get into? All that stuff. Know before you go into this that it is timed. Everything is timed. There were times on the questions where I picked an answer and then I kept reading through it. I was like, I think this one's really good. So I clicked it, but I kept reading it and like looking over it, probably overthought it too much, and then the next question comes up. That's what it means by like it's time. Like each question is like 15 to 20 seconds or something. Probably not 15, like maybe 30 seconds. So that's really important to keep in mind when doing this. Another thing that so many people have told me when I was taking my web interview is to stay consistent. So they're gonna ask you questions where it's absolutely always or absolutely never, and then they'll be like yes, no, and then a neutral thing. So Disney really wants you to stay consistent. So most of the questions that I answered were absolutely always or Absolutely never. They're not. Only like maybe like 3, 2, very, very few that I put neutral because it was a situation where you had to see what was going on. So that's why I did that. You need to stay consistent with your answers. Also, first part, they'll switch the wording around sometimes, and you want to make sure that you read the question thoroughly and know that, like, if I put I'm always on time, you want to make sure that the question that rewords it, you answer that you're always on time still. Because if you don't want to be always on time and then sometimes on time, like, that's not consistent. So you really need to, like, and it's not hard at all. Like, they're not out to trick you. It's nothing that you cannot handle. Like, it's super easy. And I was honestly surprised on how easy it was. As soon as you're done that, if you pass that part of the interview process, I guess you can call it, you can schedule your phone interview right then and there. So I'm going to pick up where I left off. As soon as you're done your web interview, you're going to schedule your phone interview. For me, I had like a week, and then the first day that I could was a Friday, I believe. Yes, it was a Friday. So kind of what I suggest, and this is all personal, but for me, I was like, I want to pick the soonest date to have my phone interview, the soonest date, the soonest time, because I felt like the longer I waited, maybe the less of a chance I could get in, which probably is not the case, but just in my brain, I was like, I need to, like, I want to get this done. Like, I'm so excited for it. Like, let's do this. So I picked a Friday at 8:45 p.m., which if you watch one of my first videos, I'll link it somewhere around here. I had it at night and I waited all day, prepared all day, probably over prepared just a little bit. What I did to prepare for the phone interview was I Googled YouTube videos of people having their phone interviews, like people actually sitting there on the phone with the recruiter. And I turned the volume all the way up, and I had my Google Doc and I had my YouTube video. And as the recruiter was asking questions, no matter what they were, whether they were easy questions or whether they were complicated questions, I wrote them down. And then I went back later on and answered kind of in paragraph form, not really, but like a few sentences. Or I would put like a few bullet points of how I would answer them. And then I would have people ask me the question, and I would kind of read how I would answer it, and they would be like, oh yeah, this is kind of how you answered on here, like, that's really good. That's how I prepared for the phone interview. Another really important fact of the phone interview is when you answer, you say, hello, this is Caitlin speaking, and then they'll be like, hello, and then they'll say, hello, this is blah 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 blah. And you're gonna, at the end of the phone interview, I suggest writing their name down as soon as they say it. And at the end of the interview, you're gonna say, thank you so much, blah, 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 for speaking with me tonight. And they're gonna say, oh, thank you so much, because you took the time to remember their name, even though you wrote it down. I suggest writing it down just because there's so much going through your head right now, and like you're thinking so much about the questions, answers, that you might forget it. So write it down, super important. Also, write down the roles you're interested that you talked about.